This is going to taste like piss. That's what I'm thinking. My family was out of the house at the time, but they come back in the house and like, whoa, what is that? You know what I mean?
Sam, what was the first thought you had when you were thinking about drinking your urine for the first time?
Well, when I first thought about drinking it, that was way before I started drinking it. So my first thought was basically like, it's about the nastiest thing. Well, not the nastiest, but I was like, that is gross. I don't think I'm going to do that, because I'd heard people talk about doing it. You hear all kinds of stories about crazy things people do. And that was one of the crazier things at the time. So, my thought was, I'm not doing that.
Okay. So then what was your thought when you actually were doing it and you're holding the cup and you're right about to drink it? What are you thinking then?
I'm thinking, this is going to taste like piss. That's what I'm thinking. And sure enough, it tasted pretty much like, I didn't know what piss tasted like.
Exactly.
But we all have an experience with smelling it. And I would say it doesn't taste much different from how it smells. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So that was like approximately how long ago?
Maybe 2021 or 2, maybe.
Okay. So 5-ish years. So
4 years ago. Yeah. 5 years, 4 years. Yeah.
Okay. So why would you say, what are the benefits that keep you doing it?
Oftentimes people do these types of things because they have some sort of health condition in mind they're trying to address. And for me, it wasn't like that. It was this idea that something that you produce, your body produces, might be something actually good for you. And so it had more to do with, this is going to sound weird, but for me, it still has more of this idea of sustainability. It's this idea that, say I'm like in the desert, God forbid, and there's no water. You have something that you produce that then is good for your body is mostly the reason why I started doing it, and I continue to do it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so thank you for being my guest today. I'm Candidly Carolyn, and I ask the questions real, raw, unscripted. I have no idea what I'm going to ask. Sam does not know what I'm going to ask. And I'm really trying to ask questions that I think people really want to know the answers to. And so I thank you for being on my channel today. What would you like to tell the audience about yourself before we continue?
Probably the most relevant thing is that I think it has to do with my human design, but I like to learn by experiencing things, by making mistakes. So even with the urine topic, I heard about it. I was like, kind of gross. But then at the end of the day, it's like, I guess I won't really know if I just leave it in my head. I've got to actually try it. So I think I'm here in this existence to experience and to play and to learn. That's how I primarily think of myself.
Cool. That's a great way to approach things. So what would you say is your biggest positive outcome from doing this process? And tell us the name, because I know it has it has a real name and I don't want to mispronounce it.
People often talk about this practice as urine therapy, UT, or they might use the Ayurvedic term Shivambu.
Okay.
I think that's what you're referring to when you say it has a name.
Yes.
Because you could just say drinking your own piss. That works. It is mentioned, if you were to do this, that it's your morning urine is the urine you should drink. And that primarily has to do with, it has a high level of stem cells. I guess overnight as you're sleeping, your body is actually in a restorative process. And one of the claims, not the only one, is that there's a lot of stem cells in your urine. So if you drink the urine when you first get up in the morning, and so what I do when I drink my urine is I kind of do this intention setting thing where I actually hold, and this is maybe from my understanding of water, water being a huge fraction of urine, and also Veda Austin's work. I usually hold it to my heart and I set an intention of what I want the urine to do in my body. And it usually has to do with, maybe not usually, always it has to do with some sort of health effect. Even though I don't really come to urine with that main desired end, but we can always be more healthy. So yeah.
I know people have experienced a lot of different effects from drinking their urine. The enlightenment, messages from God, extreme health benefits, curing XYZ problems in the body that they couldn't cure with regular medicine or other ways. What would you say is kind of the most surprising outcome of drinking your urine for you that you've experienced? The most surprising?
well, I don't know if I said this, but this idea of really connecting to self and being grounded, like in the body, like it's this bodily product, and I'm taking it back in my body. And I think I've maybe without the transmutation of my mind, thinking about this being a good practice, it already is already good for you. But I feel like as I set that intention, it's like I'm doing something very somatic for myself when I drink my urine. So that's
somatic.
probably the deepest. I mean, every day I do it, that's kind of where I'm at with this. Like, this is a bodily practice, and it's very grounding in this 3D realm versus spiritual, even though I'm sure there's a spiritual component that I actualize as well, but it's not like any kind of,
Yeah, we've actually never talked about that. That's really interesting. So I know you know a lot of people in the community, in the truther community that have this practice.
Yes.
What would you say are some of the things that you have heard them experience? Not necessarily you, but you have heard stories of miraculous fill in the blank that other people have experienced, or just enlightening, interesting things that you've heard.
So Amanda Vollmer stands out. She talks a lot about, like I said, this idea that, there's a certain number of stem cells or a certain concentration of stem cells in your urine. She also talks about external application where you're putting on your skin. And I think that's probably the most common usage by people inadvertently is on your skin. As you may or may not know, there's a TED Talk out there that talks about urine. And he talks about how there's kind of this industry where they're going to urinals maybe, and they're actually collecting the urine and then maybe bringing it back to a lab situation. And then they're taking out the urea component. And then
I have heard of that.
Then they're using that in like cosmetics, typically like skin on the skin.
Yes.
So if you look on not any, but many lotions and things that are designed to go on the skin, you'll see that urea is one of the named ingredients. And I probably should have mentioned that this is not just something that is trendy. Apparently, these are practices that certain cultures, my own, coming from an Asian background, has participated in this practice apparently for many years. It's certainly not anything my parents taught me to do this. I want to clarify. A lot of things I come to, I do them, and I'm like, I learned them on YouTube or like through friends, and then I hear from my mom, oh yeah, we used to do X, Y, Z. Now, she never said anything about urine in terms of drinking it, but when I told her I was drinking my own urine, because she would often ask me, like, why is your hair so dark? And that is one of the things one of these health intentions I set when I drink my urine, is this idea of, and this might be totally like superficial of me, but I like, if indeed your hair turning gray is a sign of either aging or your body not metabolizing nutrients properly, I always set that intention in the morning of like keeping my hair dark. But I mentioned this to my mother, and she's in her 90s now, and she would tell me a story about how when she was young, I think one of her siblings, who was a baby at the time, an infant, was either struck by lightning or some traumatic event, causing them to lose consciousness, and how her mother ran and got someone to urinate or got some urine and use that to kind of awaken her, like the smell. Amanda also talks about it. She shares a story about her daughter who got stung by a wasp. I think they were at some public event at a park, and obviously a wasp sting is very painful, and she was young, so she was screaming like crazy. And they immediately ran to the edge of the forest where they could get a little bit of privacy, I think, away from the people. She had her daughter pee into Amanda's hand, and then she places just a drop or two under her daughter's tongue. And the idea there is that you have blood vessels under your tongue, sublingually, it's kind of a quick, easy pathway into your circulatory system. I think it's because of the number of blood vessels, things absorb very quickly, which is why a lot of medicines often are applied under the tongue. And so within seconds after that application of her daughter's own urine under her tongue, she immediately stopped screaming, which I would take meant within seconds there was relief from the immense pain she was experiencing. Yeah, I think the idea that as I understand it, is that anytime you have some sort of insult, like a bee sting or a bite, maybe like a rattlesnake bite, your body is immediately making either an antidote or some sort of response to that insult. And within seconds, that antidote, or whatever you want to think of it, because I don't know if it's a chemical or if it's an energetic thing, but it's immediately present in the urine. So if you're like step on a sea urchin, I mean, a lot of people know you can pee on your foot if you step on your foot, but apparently something like a rattlesnake bite or stepping on something can also be alleviated by taking in some of your own urine. So that's a powerful story that has stuck with me.
Yeah, I've heard that before, and I want to make the statement,
because peeing on your foot after you step on
on a sea urchin. I want to make the statement that even though Sam looks like a doctor and may sound like a doctor, he is not, and may play one on TV, he is not a doctor. Okay. So do not take this or anything that we're saying here as medical advice. This is purely entertainment. Okay. This is purely entertainment oriented. But I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you, if someone wanted to think about and start doing this, give us the first kind of 1, 2, 3 steps of what someone needs to consider or think about or research before they do this.
Like I said, there's a TED Talk video. Maybe I'll send the link to Carolyn after this is over, and maybe she'll link to it. But it's really helpful because it tells you, like I said, the context where all of us are drinking urine anyway at some point in our life. And so when you understand that, and then maybe for some people this doesn't matter, but for others, a little bit of the science behind what might be going on with some of the chemicals and stuff, that I found helpful, and others might as well. So doing a little bit of research for certain individuals might be helpful. So that for me, another issue was the temperature. Like when you drink your urine, you're collecting it from your body. So obviously it comes out of your body at body temperature, right? 98.6, whatever. And so that for me initially was kind of a turnoff. And so I played with like chilling it down in the fridge. This is funny too, because one of my sons used to, well, my wife makes tea. And so she goes through this phase where she makes a lot of tea. She'll put it in mason jars. And if you know, depending on the type of tea, it can have a very similar color urine. And he swears, he says he didn't drink it, but he thinks he at least opened it and caught a whiff. But yeah, he says he drank some of my urine. I don't think it happened. So if you decide to chill down your own urine before you drink it, you might want to make sure people in the household know, or maybe you label very clearly, but that might help some people, is to change it from body temperature to something cooler. And then the other suggestion that Amanda talks about a lot is that you can mix it with like some sort of fruit juice, which doesn't lessen the effectiveness of it, but obviously it makes it a little more palatable. So if you want to go with, try your urine mixed with juice first, and then eventually get to doing it like gorilla style, which is what, straight from where it's coming out back in, you could try that. But that might be helpful if you're starting out.
Okay, my final question, and everybody wants to know this, my final question to you, Sam, is how do you deal with people finding out or talking to people about it, or the stigma, or the like people just being like, absolutely not, you're so gross, that's so gross. Like I was joking around, don't tell anybody you're dating that you're drinking your piss. But how do you deal with that aspect?
Yes. Well, I mean, so my family, obviously, they're the first ones who I had to face with, I'm doing this thing. And I haven't just drunk my urine. I've also done something called aging or evolving your urine, where I save it in a container in fairly large quantities. I told a story earlier about saving up aged urine for a potential full body bath. But anyway, so I do this kind of stuff, and I've done things like wash my hair with aged urine, and the stuff, I mean, imagine the smell. Like some of us have been in subways in the inner city, and, homeless people have been there, and there's that odor of like, urine. I mean, aged urine is like that and even more, right? It's not a pleasant odor. So I've had experiences where I did wash my hair in aged urine, and maybe my family was out of the house at the time, but they come back in the house and like, whoa, what is that? You know what I mean? And I'm like, oops, I guess the smell is still in the house. I mean, I try to do it outside and stuff. Post COVID, so like I said, so many people that are actually my friends now. Like I said, without fail, when I ask them or whatever comes up, I find out they're doing this anyway. So, I don't think it scandalizes so many of the people that actually matter to me. I mean, obviously, if it's a stranger, I generally don't bring up urine drinking. But like I said, I have brought to my family, and they just kind of laugh at me. And I mean, I think what I do is usually I just explain the potential health benefits. And when they hear that, they're like, okay, I mean, you can't argue with the potential effects that maybe they're seeing, but you can obviously disagree with the practice because it's kind of foul, I guess.
Okay. So now we're at the point in the show, Sam, where you can ask me any one question that you want, and I will agree to answer that question honestly. So the floor is yours.
Okay. I have some questions I could ask you about some of the things that I know you do with cetaceans and animals. But I think to stay in the context of this topic, I want to ask you, Carolyn, is this something you're thinking about doing yourself, drinking urine? How's that?
I do not think I can get past the the whiff or the smell or the taste of what I think it would taste like right now. But I do know that there are a lot of beauty products. And I got this foot cream from my friend that she's like, it makes your skin so soft. And it's like literally urea foot cream. So I could see myself potentially utilizing it as a skin thing or testing it for that. But now that you mentioned this thing about the hair, keeping your hair dark, I hate coloring my hair. Like I have gray hair. I hate coloring it, but I'm also not going to go gray. So if there's a way that they prove this out, that this is going to stop your hair from going gray, I would seriously then consider it. So I'm going to say right now that I am not going to rule it completely out, but I don't feel called to like, start to pee in a cup jar tomorrow and try to drink it. I don't feel that right now, but every day is a new day, Sam. Who knows?
Sure is.
So I want to thank
Cool.
you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to be a very enlightening episode. I'm super curious to see what the feedback from anyone who watches this is. And yes, send me that YouTube video and I will link it in the show notes below.
Awesome. Thanks, Carolyn.
I'm Candidly Carolyn. Thanks for watching. If you know anyone you think I should talk to and ask the questions people really want the answers to, send me an email below, carolyn@carolynhorey.com. Bye for now.